Hi, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner.
And our dog, Betty White.
Your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
Could we have named it something more creative? Probably. But it's the name of our blog. It's our last name. We're on an adventure. Yada, yada, yada. After owning our own business, working 24/7.
And don't forget a mental breakdown in between.
We made a lifestyle change and decided to make the most out of life.
We sold our house, most of our belongings, downsized, and moved to the coast.
We live life minimally, but fully.
We live each day as an adventure.
This show will help you learn how to live life more fully, with more intention, by experiencing more, and with less stuff.
We'll talk about our own experiences, interview others who have much to share by creating a spark in our lives.
Some days we'll share real-life ongoings of what we're going through, and others will talk about our favorite flavor of waffle.
Come join our adventure.
It's the Arner Adventures Podcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Jerry.
Betty White is here, of course, and we are back for episode 43 of the Arner Adventures Podcast.
Today, we have a Spark in Our Lives episode with someone who is not only one of the most talented jazz musicians ever, but he is doing really special things philanthropically, and is just a really great storyteller.
He really is a great storyteller, so I can't wait to get to it. But first, let's get to our review of the week. Today's review comes from Bert Listing 412. Bert says, "These episodes get better and better. I love hearing the inspiring stories each week, and I'm relieved that there is so much goodness in the world. Keep it up, Arners."
Oh, wow, Bert. Thank you so much.
Bert.
Yeah.
I've never in my whole life met a Bert.
Oh, you haven't?
No?
Oh, I've known a, well, Bert with an E, though. I think B-E-R-T.
Okay.
Instead of B-E-R-T.
Well, I've never known either.
Oh.
Maybe Bert and Ernie, but I've never met Bert and Ernie from Bert and Ernie.
Oh, you never met Bert and Ernie?
No.
Oh, me neither.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
never met them either.
Well,
but,
Bert, I tell you, that was just wonderful.
Yeah,
that was so wonderful.
Yeah, we like to think the episodes get better and better too, so it's nice to hear that from somebody.
Yeah.
No doubt. And if you all would like to be our review of the week, get a shout out, and of course, get a chance to win a sugar wish, please head over to lovethepodcast.com/arneradventures and give us a review or rating. It's a spark in our lives, much like today's guest.
Yes, today's guest is Rick DellaRatta. Rick is an American jazz singer and pianist. He came to us from his New York City apartment in the heart of Hell's Kitchen, right up from Restaurant Row. Yep. Lucky him that he lives so close to Restaurant Row.
Yeah.
That's like our fave in New York now.
Oh, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
But he has really great stories to tell. If we had hours and hours, this would have been a much longer podcast episode.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was such a great conversation. Yeah. Are you ready to get to the chat with Rick?
I am ready. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Well, we are honored to have today's guest on the podcast. That's an understatement. Rick DellaRatta is with us today. He is considered to be one of the finest singers, pianists performing today, and one of only a handful of jazz artists who can make a successful musical presentation to a large audience without having to abandon the true art form of jazz. Rick DellaRatta is considered to be an innovator, a visionary through his lifelong endeavor to help advance people to their highest potential through the understanding of jazz, as well as spreading peace worldwide through his Jazz for Peace World Tour. And we can't wait to talk about that. What intrigued us most was reading how Rick drove his car to New Jersey, took off the license plates, and walked away from it, leading him on a journey to be able to focus his time, energy, and resources to helping 850, I think probably more than that now, of the world's most outstanding causes through his now acclaimed benefit concert series. Rick, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
We are just ecstatic. I mean,
yeah.
I don't even think we can express how ecstatic we are. You sort of encompass so much about our life. We love, our journey to, living a more downsized life so we can focus on our passion and then, and the music.
Well, and the music. Yeah. And my mind will constantly go there because I'm just such a music fan, but all the other stuff first will be great to talk about.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into, so much, but I would love if we, since we just brought up the leaving your car and all that. I mean, did you actually leave your car?
I'm so glad. I don't get, and this is cool because it's not every day that I get to tell this story,
Okay.
It's a great story because I talk to people even today, even recently, I remember talking to someone and I was saying, you've been a part of the workforce for so many years. The person was kind of like, a little bit stressed out needing to work and do all these things. And I was thinking, you've been a part of the workforce for so long, blah, blah, blah. And when I was saying, what is it that you need to, to put in all these hours for? And she was mentioning her car, because she chooses to have a car was one of the things she mentioned, which brought me back to that memory. And basically what happened with me is I went to school in Boston and I had a car. And of course, everyone gets a car. I lived in upstate New York and that kind of thing. I don't know. It's just part of what happens, car. So, and I always was a little bit in the back of my mind suspicious about the car thing anyway, which is a whole nother story. That's another thing with, with the dismantling of public transportation. I don't know if you know about, okay,
right.
We'll talk about it, but just to get, and that's an amazing story. But anyway, so now living in Boston, and I have a car because Boston has all of these amazing suburbs that you can play gigs in, and I was car, blah, 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 blah. Then I ended up coming to New York because it was kind of a rite of passage back then. It may still even be, but back then it was, you get your act together somewhere else. You know what I mean? Right. You kind of, pee and everything somewhere else. And then once you're ready, you come to New York with, some skills, hopefully, to survive.
Right.
In the arts as a musician. So, I studied in the conservatory, got all that. Then I ended up coming to New York in a kind of a strange story where I was visiting. I walked into some people on the street who I knew from Boston. They had a band. They needed someone to play keyboards, and they wanted to feature someone's original music, which was, just one thing led to another. So I come here and I have a car because, I had a car. So what am I going to do? I have a car, and I'm here, and I found myself doing a lot of reverse commuting. So because I had a car, but I was here to play in New York, really. I wanted to play in New York. That's why I was in New York, but I'm getting called to play, kind of in Boston, not really all the way back in Boston, but you know what I mean? I'm going that way. I just came this way, but I'm getting called to go back. I'm driving that way, I'm driving this way. I'm driving that way. So I'm reverse commuting into New Jersey. I even had a 6-night-a-week steady gig at a place called the Palisadium overlooking New York, but it was in New Jersey. Those were all fine. I was doing it. But after a while, I was like, this is kind of crazy. I'm living here and working there. Instead of living there and working here, I'm living here and working there. I'm going to, I don't know all these names of, little towns in Long Island and New Jersey and, Connecticut, Mystic, Connecticut, whatever, all these different places.
Yeah, we know that.
So I'm kind of doing that. And then what happened was I got a call from the Platters. They're like a famous band from the 1950s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they wanted me to do something, play with them on some boats, on these cruise ships, and it was kind of cushy. We were in like the Star cabin. It was like flew me down to Miami, picked me up in a limousine. And I'm like, they said, your ride is here. And I'm like, that's not I just see a limousine. I don't see a little, truck, you know what I mean? Or a little guy in a station wagon. What are you talking about, ride? No, that's your ride. And I help with them. I didn't even, how did they even know it was going to work out? And all by myself in a stretch limousine, I don't know if it was a cruise ship or who sent this thing. But anyway, it was kind of like that. It was very cushy, on this thing. We do very little playing, lots of, they wanted us to, all of my gigs have a crazy story associated with, but in this one, since I tell you enjoying it, they really wanted us to hang out with the people on the ship, they were getting more bang for their buck if they were hanging out with the Platters.
Yeah.
So we had signing privileges. They were like, if you're with a bunch of people and they come up, you want to sign for a round of drinks for everybody, or you want to sign just sign stuff. Wow. It was very strange. So anyway, I was having my fun, but to go on that, I had to do something with my car, because the other problem is, one, you're reverse commuting. Two, you're being targeted because you have a car. You know what I mean? They want to slap tickets on it. They want to tow it. They want to vandalize it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are coming at you from 5 different directions only because you have a car.
Right.
Then you have payments. So you're commuting somewhere that you might not even want to play, with a gig that you might not even want to do, and taking that money to pay for the car that drove you there.
Right.
So the whole thing is a wash. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right. Zero, You're on a hamster wheel, basically, right?
100%.
We have heard this story before.
Yeah, we've talked to someone else who had a similar journey, and he said the same thing.
Yeah.
We all work for a car. Then why can't you get rid of your car? Well, I need my car, and then
to take me to my
job.
To pay for my car. Yep.
Yeah, you need your car to go here to pay for the car.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all of this stuff, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to work in New York when I come back, or bust. You know what I mean? So I took my car, and there's no way, there's nothing I can do with this car. I can't leave it on the street. It's got to be moved at like 6 a.m. across the street. Even if you're lucky to find a place to park it, you've got to get up at 6 o'clock and just to move it across the street.
Oh.
So it will be in compliance with parking regulations.
Oh.
They call it alternate side parking. Alternate side parking. So you have to get up and move the car. You know what I mean? All kinds of weird things like that. Sometimes you come home and you have to drive around for 45 minutes to find a place to park it.
Oh, no.
You know, but I had, so much work where I was driving to work with the car. So I couldn't, but in this deal, this was like a separate deal. I'm like, wait a minute now, now I have to do something with the car. And I had lived in Jersey City when I first came to New York because it was very sort of, someone had found me an apartment there that wanted me to play in their band. They said it was a cheap apartment. It kind of was. So I knew there was a, what do they call it? Hold the cap, something like that. It's a French term.
Cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Cul-de-sac. There was a cul-de-sac. And I brought the car. I knew I could drive the car there and just put it there. And then I got out and I was like, I think I'm just going to take these license plates off of it. And I just took the plates off and I just walked. And I just walked onto the path, which is what they call it, the PATH train, back into New York with my license plates, just brought them back in. And then I went on this crazy wild thing with the platters, in the Caribbean, going to all these islands and whatever. I get back from that and I don't go to pick up that car. I'm in New York, and I want to work in New York. You know what I mean? I don't care what kind of gig it is in New York. It's like, in other words, I will, I'll play, I started playing in subways, in parks, because there were people that had permits to do that. And they would find out, oh yeah, that guy, I would have a keyboard that had a battery power on it, And one of the guys that called me was the brother of a very famous actor who was in Little Miss Daisy, Little Miss Sunshine. He was in a lot of ones. If I told you the guy's name, you would know. For some reason or other, I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Yeah, and we've seen Little Miss Sunshine. I just can't even remember. Yeah.
Older guy in Little Miss Sunshine, the kind of older guy, very famous name, Alan Arkin. Alan Arkin was
Alan Arkin.
Alan Arkin's brother.
Okay.
He's a subway street musician bass player. Alan Arkin's brother, real brother, because I was like, Bob, you got the same name. I keep thinking Alan Arkin, the actor. And he said, that is my brother. Because, we're not ran into anybody named Arkin for whatever reason. The only Arkin I know is Alan Arkin. He said, that's my brother. So Alan Arkin's brother was calling me, hey, I got your name from so-and-so. People would get your name from so-and-so. I got your name from so-and-so, and I got something. I said, where is it? It's in, what's the famous one? Grand Central Station.
Wow.
Yeah. And see, he was a real pro. He had a permit from the city to do these things. And we would make money because I had a battery-powered keyboard. Now, I got sick of schlepping the keyboard around, so I kind of did the same thing with the keyboard one day. But that's another story. So that was the only way to get out was just abandon the thing, But I abandoned the car. Yeah, I got out of dragging a battery because they'll call you. I was in Central Park in the afternoon. I was going here. Another band would play with a generator, and they play funk music, and they blast, and we'd make a ton of money. Yeah. The gig was you played until the cops showed up. So
I was just here thinking, why would
with a generator, and people would crowd around, and this guy would, hey Rick, play a solo, and then he'd go out and collect, really busk all these people. And I mean, we were making more than we were making at night in the clubs.
Wow.
Yeah, we made more outdoor with my battery-powered keyboard and some of these bands that I didn't even need a battery powered because I had a generator. I mean, we were making more money. It's just that it wasn't really what I signed up for. It's like I went to a concert, I did all this stuff. To be a street musician, is that what I was? You know what I mean? So I was like, I have to end. It's not going to end unless I end it. Even though I loved it, I just had to. And it was the same thing with the car. It's like I have to play in New York. I don't care if it's in a piano bar, a cabaret, if it's a, I don't care what it is. It's just got to be on this island.
New York, yeah, I completely get that.
It's got to be on this island, or if I'm going to go somewhere, an airplane has to take me.
Right.
Or if someone is willing to give me a ride, that means that they really want me to do it. So it's going to be the kind of thing I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like you set your goals, you set your standards for what you were going to leave.
Yourself someplace. I was placing myself. You know what I mean? Where I wanted to be.
Yeah. Sort of manifesting what you wanted to happen. And
I kind of was. And I'll tell you, when I got rid of that car, what a relief.
When you said you walked away, I was thinking, I bet you could just feel physically the weight coming off.
I could, because sometimes you realize it's nobody but you that's, you might be getting subliminal messages from multinational car companies that you should have a car. You're getting those subliminal messages, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But it's still you're the one that's in chains here, They're they're sending you messages, be in chains, buy this car, be, sacrifice, they're sending message, but you still have to drink the Kool-Aid to do it.
100%, 100%.
And you got to keep drinking it to keep doing it.
You know what I've realized?
What's that, Jer?
People think that when the temperatures cool down that you don't need to drink as much water.
Dehydration can happen any time of year. Drinking water is important year round.
It's easy to stay hydrated with Liquid IV.
Absolutely. Liquid IV is a hydration multiplier. It's a powder in a packet, so you can take them with you wherever you go.
It's an electrolyte mix that you just add to your water. It delivers 2 to 2.5 more hydration than water alone.
So many flavors to choose from too. Grape, tropical punch, guava, passion fruit, strawberry.
Okay. Liquid IV has a ton of flavors. There is something for everyone. If you want your water to work harder for you, you should definitely try Liquid IV.
And for our listeners, if you go to their website, liquid-iv.com, and use code Arner Adventures, you can save 15% and get free shipping.
We'll link it in the show notes too. Liquid IV, fueling life's adventures.
Well, and I think it's that way with a lot of stuff. I think, we downsize and we have a minimal life. And then all of a sudden I'll say, how did we, and forget, I cuss like a sailor, but I'll say, how did we get all this shit around here? Like, where did this shit come from?
Yeah.
And we'll realize, how did we say yes to this stuff? How did it get here? And then you realize, oh, it's the whole system. It's the whole
system.
Thing.
First of all, it's a debt-based system, so it's all built on debt. Okay, so in other words, you've got to have this constant creation of, debt, and you have to keep selling the products. That's why we have enough clothes, but we've got to buy more clothes. So they invent that you got to be in style. This is coming out, and you got to get rid of those clothes. You got to buy those clothes. We don't care what you do with those clothes. We just care that you buy these new ones. And and if you don't buy them, we're going to shame you because it's a system that's run in that. That's the way the system is run, and it has some serious flaws. One of them is very much tied to cars, where basically what happened was when cars came out, most people thought it was a kind of a luxury type of extra, just something that you might buy for little Sunday drives, little things like that. It was not neat. No one thought of it as anything you needed at all. The public transportation systems were electric powered, clean energy. The cleanest we've ever had were the public transportation before cars came out. And even places, well, what about LA? LA had the best. LA had the best public transportation in the entire country. As good as some of these other cities are, including New York. LA had the best. Every 6 minutes, a bus would come, or these electric trolleys that were, in San Francisco, they were clockwork, and it's not a big deal to maintain. They was incredible. So what happened was the car companies got together and they colluded together and they said, hey, let's form, because they couldn't do this, but they could form a subsidiary. You know what I mean? They could form, it's kind of like, it's kind of like Dasani water is really Coca-Cola. But you don't know that until you look at the back. And
I know, and it's written about it.
Right, so the car companies own this other company, and that company, because it wasn't a car company, could now go to the city and try to bribe them out of their public transportation. So they literally bought the public transportation of Los Angeles. They bought it, and then they started dismantling it, messing it up on purpose. So instead of 6 minutes, they just moved it to 12 minutes. Then they kept moving, you know what I mean? And they created a situation where people were like, you know what?
I need a car.
I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm getting a car. Yeah, I'm getting a car. Then they started the roads where they started paving everything, and they started creating, because I hate to say it, you don't really need cars. As much as we think we do, we really don't.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, once you get in a car and you're driving a car all the time and you're driving your car, you kind of get addicted to your car. You have a relationship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I know people that will drive into the city because their mindset. It's their mindset. They'll drive in and, even, sometimes they get tickets. I mean, they'll take all those chances because it's in their mindset. But if they didn't have that mindset in the first place, they wouldn't, So a lot of this stuff is getting rid of it means some people getting less profits. And those people that would get the less profits are other people around their payroll.
Right.
Senators, congressmen.
It all comes down to money. It always does. It always comes down to, why aren't they doing anything about this? And then you dig and it's the money. Just like
my problem with it is what we've paved over to create for cars.
Right.
That wouldn't have been necessary. You know what I mean? And what about all of that earth? Because, there's supposedly there are more things that live under the earth than above the earth. There's more things that live under the earth. What about, isn't that connected to the ecosystem? How is all of this connected? How do you know what I mean? What we pave the daylights out of so much, what are the consequences? So, I mean, there's severe consequences to a lot of this stuff.
They paved paradise and put up a parking lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
they did.
So, gosh, that's so interesting. And I love that it sort of led you more on your path of passion. And that's exactly what intrigued us. So, talking about, you're a wonderfully skilled jazz musician, years of experience playing tons of concerts and festivals. So, how did you first fall in love with jazz? Do you have like a recollection of that moment? And like, what is your relationship with jazz even today?
Well, I started really just wanting to improvise, on my own, because there was a piano in my house that had been brought on Christmas Eve that I thought Santa Claus brought in. And I figured if Santa brought this, there must have been, because I stayed up late at night trying to catch him. And I did see a pretty fat guy moving a large object. I couldn't let my parents catch me, but that's what I saw. And I was like, that must have been him. All right, I saw it. It's done. He is real. I did see him. So, so I was playing it on my own. And I really just wanted to do it on my own. But then somehow I got caught. Someone ratted me out, probably to my mother, and said, your son there is constantly playing the piano when nobody's around and, sneaking up there and doing that. So I started taking lessons, which was classical music, which was, again, not what I really, what I'm trying to figure out. I was listening to the songs that kids listen to, pop and rock on the radio and all that. Then one thing led to another, but I was giving everything a chance. I kept an open mind. I was like, wow, there's something to this classical music that I can't discard that. I could walk away from a car, but I couldn't walk away from the music. So
right.
That's what happened. I couldn't walk away with it. I was like, oh, now that you told me about it, there is something new that I have to learn. So a similar thing happened in jazz where I believe I was in a library and I opened a drawer kind of by accident and there were all these jazz records in the drawer. I'm like, what are these? Who are these people? I never heard of them and I don't know, what is this? And I started taking them out of the library because I'm like, I can't walk away from what I opened the drawer and now I can't walk away from it. Maybe I'll figure out it's all a big phony thing and walk away, but until I do, I got to get to the bottom of this. Next thing I know, I'm listening to music that's way over my head, but I'm suffering through because I know I can't walk away from it. I can't leave it. It's something, it has substance. There's something very special about it, and then I just kind of continued along. When I was deciding what school to go to, I happened to notice that there was a name stood out, a jazz musician that was teaching at the conservatory. I thought, wow, I wouldn't mind studying with that person. And I went there choosing piano performance, which only meant classical music to that school. I didn't know. And I went there prepared to play a bunch of different styles for them. And I got accepted as a classical major, but I was able to study with that person as a minor. And then I was able to play gigs in Boston. You know what I mean? So I was just able to keep going. So as I kept going, again, it was less and less chances of me escaping jazz because it kept giving me things. There was creativity involved. There was, there was improvisation involved. There was a stimulator to my intellect. There was, history involved. There was all these things involved with it that I couldn't take the plates off of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't remove the license. Wow. That.
I think that, first of all, I feel like that it sort of just meant that it was pulling you to it, which, the other
thing I wanted to say about cars that I forgot to say is once I walked away from the cars, I realized that every time I get in a car, I'm lowering a person's carbon footprint. So I'm doing a good thing by getting in someone's car. Now, I would joke to people because I love to ski and I ski in Utah. And I take a bus. I ride a bicycle to a ski bus. I take the ski bus to the mountain. Mm-hmm. But, my friends drive cars and I'm like, hey, if you'd like to lower your carbon footprint, you can swing by. I say it's a joke, but it really is true.
No, it is.
It really is true, right? I'm lowering his carbon footprint and I'm doing him a favor. I'm doing everybody a favor by getting in someone's car.
We dug into the numbers one time, and I don't have them in front of me, but we dug into the numbers of, how much you reduce your carbon footprint and how much it does, well, financially, but also just to the earth. And that you should almost never get in your car alone. You should almost never. It's so, if you look at it, and then planes and buses and everything, you just want to, I don't know, I was so excited. I was flying, I can't even remember where I was flying back from on our last trip, but my mom and I were on the plane and we got on and we were so excited that we were 2 of maybe 10 people on this whole plane, a giant plane recently where they're paying you to give up your ticket. And we were so excited. And then as we're flying, I'm like, this is really shitty. Like, I feel really bad about this. They really should have just almost bumped us until the plane was full. Like, I can't even believe I'm putting that out in the universe and saying that, but it did make me feel really shitty. Just thinking about this big plane and how much it's doing, and there's 10 people on it.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, the whole thing about waste, it's not necessary. Now, as you dig into it, you get into a lot of moving parts when you come to things like, the environment and all that stuff. And that leads us a little bit to Jazz for Peace, because as I continued with my journey with jazz and music, my musical journey, jazz being a big part of, was helping me develop as a human being as well. You know what I mean? Because it was stimulating my intellect, and it was doing all these things that made me hopefully, a more interesting person or a better person or a more knowledgeable person, these kinds of things. And I started to have these, different thoughts about stuff, but I didn't really realize how stupid I was. Now I realize how stupid I am, so I'm a little bit smart.
Yeah, if you recognize that.
Because before that, you're really dumb. Now I'm just dumb, maybe, because I realize how stupid I am. But if you don't realize how stupid you are, man, you're probably really dumb.
Oh,
so
no.
I was in that world, but I was trying. Anyway, I was hanging there. I was keeping an open mind. And what happened with Jazz for Peace is, I got to meet people because I was helping outstanding causes with my music. I got to meet people who really would educate me about who they were and what they were all about. And because of what you're bringing up, I just want to tell you, one time I went to a concert in Los Angeles. That poster's over here, but you can't see everything.
Yeah, we can see
There's a poster of it. And it was to save orangutans who are being jeopardized very badly. Yeah. And on the board of that, they kept saying, Ed Begley Jr. I said, I've heard of him. He's an actor. But then when he came to the concert, and he knew more about me than I knew about him. He's like, I've been following you. I love your music, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, my God, I better look up this guy. He was the first actor to have the first anybody that I know to have a zero carbon footprint.
And who was this?
1970s or 80s. His name is Ed Begley Jr.
Oh, yeah. Ed Begley Jr. Okay.
Yeah.
If you watch Better Call Saul or something, he's a guest on one of those.
Yes, I know.
All right.
I think Spinal Tap.
Was he in Spinal Tap?
I thought he had a little role in Spinal Tap. Wasn't he one of the drummers that blew up or something? Or
I think you're right. The drummer did blow up.
He has zero carbon footprint? Does he still?
He rigged up his house, and everybody, when you're a little on the genius side, if you have a genius idea, the first thing that's going to happen is everyone's going to think you're nuts. So make sure that everyone thinks you're nuts, or you're not even on the right track. You know what I mean? If you don't at least get that far, you better pack it in. Because everyone thought he was nuts. Because, listen, I'm concerned about the environment. I want to be a star. He had all these reasons. But people were like, what's he doing? We got electricity. Just plug in. He had something. He rigged it all up so he had a zero carbon footprint. And for decades, people were like, I don't know about him. But nobody really held it against him, which was good. Like this guy Serpico, who,
Yeah.
A lot of, you know what I mean? It's like we attack whistleblowers.
Yeah.
And you're never going to get something straightened out if nobody talks about it.
Right.
Never. Your chances are zero. You know what I mean? So here's these people we need so badly, and we're attacking the living daylights out of them. And if you look at the true story of this guy, Serpico, what he went through was ungodly. I think maybe they didn't say everything because they're afraid nobody will want to tell on anybody if it's going to be that hard for you.
Right. So listen, we're probably not the first to introduce you to the topic of CBD or CBD oil. If you're anything like us, it seems like every time you turn around, you're seeing a neon sign for CBD sold here at your local grocery store, in a window as you're driving by, or it flashes across your screen in an online ad.
Shannon's sister told us about the benefits she was having from a brand she was using, and then we started paying attention to that brand.
Spoiler alert, that brand is Danodan. Full transparency, we get about 2 to 3 CBD brands reaching out to us every week. And it wasn't until we started digging into the research that we learned that CBD isn't always CBD. They're just not all the same.
Danodan Hempworks makes organic hemp flower infusions. They're more than just CBD. Danodan's range of hemp products dissolve easily into any liquid and support your routine by helping you manage daily stress, promote healthy sleep, provide caffeine-free energy, and recover from activity-related stiffness and soreness.
They also have CBD hemp flower infusion specifically designed for pets, and Betty White uses it every day. She loves it. We put it on her food. And with Danodan, you'll enjoy all the benefits of legal hemp, not just 1 or 2 compounds isolated in a lab. Get 20% off right now with the code ADVENTURE at danodan.com. We'll link it for you in the show notes. That's 20% off right now with the code ADVENTURE at danodan.com.
Danodan, more than just CBD.
Okay, so with Jazz for Peace, if I'm not mistaken, and I would love for you to tell that story, and you're talking about it and, getting it out in the open, it started after 9/11, right?
Right on that morning.
Okay.
I started with a poem on that morning. Because
right. So could you tell us that story and how Jazz for Peace came to be? Would you mind sharing that with us?
Sure. So the day before that, I was on a photo shoot with a person who was an aspiring, she was a photographer. She had a Wall Street gig. A lot of these people have jobs so they can pursue their passion,
Yeah.
She was a photographer who worked on Wall Street, but she loved photography. She would travel to India and take pictures. She was all into her photography. And she was doing what some photographers that are pretty smart do. Like Linda McCartney got real famous for doing this. They find people that are not famous, but they recognize them. And they'll go up to Bob Dylan when he's just walking around, Tompkins Square Park with his guitar, playing in little, hey, can I take some pictures of you and I'll give you copies? And they're like, oh, free photo shoot? Sure. You're going to give me the pictures? Yeah. Oh, I don't have to pay for them? Yeah. And they take pictures. And like when Bob Dylan and Jimi Hendrix and all these people, my understanding of the story is when they blew up and got famous, the only person that had pictures of them before that was Linda McCartney.
Wow.
His name was Linda McGillicuddy or something like that.
Yeah.
And so she then, her career shot up because she had those photos. And you had to call her, if you were Life magazine or whatever, to get pictures of those guys when they were just, one of the starving folk singers.
Ah, brilliant.
So this girl was kind of doing that. She was taking pictures of me, which she had some, I guess. She was been taking some pictures of me. So we spent time together and all that stuff. And the next morning, because she didn't know what to do, I get a phone call and I was sleeping and I just get the phone. I'm like, hey, she says, hey, I'm really sorry to bother you. I said, oh, what's up? Something, something happened with the camera, I don't know. You know what I mean? Did something fall in the water? I don't know what she said. No, she says, I'm down at night. And she tells me the story of her boss. Her boss's son worked in one of the towers. The son of the boss called him up and said, hey, something hit the other tower. What should I do? Blah, blah, blah. And the father said, son, why don't we just be safe? Why don't you get out of there? And told the son to just get out of the other building because we don't know what's going on. That was the last time he saw his son, unfortunately. I didn't know it at the time when she called. But she said, I don't know who to talk to. I just thought I'd call you. I said, really? Because I can see this on the roof. She said, yeah, if you want to go up on the roof. And I was lived on the 5th floor walk up, and I just was right near the roof. I used to go up my roof all the time because I was already up there anyway. Just opened the door and went up there, and boom, I'm less than a quarter of a mile away. And there it is. I mean, I'm seeing insanity, like I'm seeing something you cannot even imagine seeing.
No.
It's not unimaginable. It's surreal. It's like if I was on acid.
Yeah.
I took 2 hits of acid and just dealt with whatever I ended up seeing. That's what it was like.
I cannot imagine. I'm actually, and having not been there, I'm surprised that you didn't hear it.
No. I'll be honest with you. You hear stuff, if you reacted to everything you heard in New York City.
In New York. Right.
Get it. I mean, I hear, there's sometimes it sounds to me like 20 people got shot and it's just it could be some motorcycle. Yeah. There's motorcycles, there's sirens, there's a million things. And no, I didn't hear anything. Well, first of all, I was sleeping.
Sure.
And I'm in an apartment I'm trying not to get sound in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Actually, I have done this. I would take soundproofing from recording studios because I learned this from being in so many recording studios. I'm like, man, can I get some of that? Call this sound guy, this sound company. I would call the sound company and they sell me stuff for as if it was a recording studio. I just pretend, I'm opening a recording studio. Okay, well, because I'd give me a price on them. And I put it in my apartment to stop the stuff coming in. To stop. What do I need? Some loud taxi, a taxi banging on his horn for like 12 seconds. And then screaming insults at some other guy on a bicycle.
And on the 5th floor, you would hear it too.
Yeah, you can't believe me. Yeah.
Did you immediately say, I need to write these thoughts down? Or
what was that next? Like, what am I going to do? And words were coming out of me. I couldn't think of anything to do, but there were words coming out of me. Words were coming out. It was like I was giving birth to words. Yeah. It was like just, I was like, what do they call it when your water? What do they call it? You lose your water or something? My water was breaking.
Your water was breaking. Yeah.
Water was breaking.
Yeah. Huh. And you wrote it there on the roof.
I wrote the words down, and it turned out to be a poem. But at that time, it had been welling up because I've been traveling all over the world, and I'm looking at these oxymorons without any oxy. You know what I mean? Yeah. All these little things that we were talking about with, like, why don't we put one of these artists up places in every city? Yeah. Why don't we? I don't know why we don't. It's an oxymoron, but without any oxy. Yep. I guess because all the oxy is being taken by these addicts.
That's exactly right.
There's no room for that on the word anymore. I made that thing up, the oxymoron, because I just thought it was funny, and I can't.
No, it is funny.
I can't say this at some point. So what happens is, I actually done stand-up comedy, by the way. So
you did.
Maybe the jokes will get better as we go along. Who knows? So anyway, so this comes out, and it had been. I had, like I said, all these oxymorons. Anyway, where I was like, music really transcends. These are problems that people are having because of language. Music transcends that. Here's problems that they're having over in Palestine, Israel because of religion. Music transcends it. Here's problems that they're having because of race, because of creed, because of color, because of music transcends all of them. And then I noticed this art form of jazz that I'm speaking is spoken everywhere in the world. You can find little people speaking it. this is long after 9/11, but I remember one time I was in Haiti, and I'm like, I'm just going to go over there. These people confirm their event. I'm just going to show up, So now I'm in a big truck in Haiti with all these Haitians, and they're just all on for the ride. They're driving me. Sorry to have so many crazy stories. They're driving me to studios that are either radio or television studios. And they're bringing me in. They say, sit over there. And they go and they talk to the guy, and they bring somebody out, and they point over to me. And then the guy goes, okay. And he blah, blah, blah. I said, what is it you're doing? He said, these people didn't believe that you were going to come here. They said, they're not going to schedule your interview until they see you in the flesh.
Wow.
So the next day I had a whole bunch of interviews. You can see some of them, a couple of them are online.
Yeah.
Haitian TV. But anyway, I'm on that truck now, and one of the guys says to me, Rick, while you're here, we want you to, what do you need? Do you need anything while you're here? I said, sir, I need a band.
A band?
What? I said, yeah, this concert is tomorrow, right? They said, yeah, it's tomorrow. I need a band. I don't have anything. I'm just me. So what are we going to do? So I said, listen, we know musicians. Yeah, but where are you going to find a musician that knows the music, speaks music? They said, I don't know. Well, we're going to call it. So they're calling people now. So while they're driving me, I'm getting a phone handed back to me from the truck. Hey, talk to this guy. I said, listen, let me talk to you. If you got somebody, I got to talk to him, because if he doesn't read music, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to put this thing, if he doesn't read music, I could hang out with him for a month maybe, and we could do the concert in, August. You know what I mean? So, you got to get it. Does he play jazz? What kind of music does he play? If he plays Haitian music, on one of those, no, that might be able to, she's not going to be able to, you know what I mean? So
right.
I'd say, he plays that. Okay, who's your favorite saxophone player? Okay, I know. Who's your favorite? One guy, they said, what do you play? He says, I play guitar. I said, who's your play? I said, ask him, who's his favorite guitar player? They would ask him and tell me. And they say, they didn't even hard to say them. Wes Montgomery. Give me that phone. Did you say Wes Montgomery is your favorite? Whoa, I already know he can play. I know everything about him just from that. You know what I mean? Right. I know what he's studying. I know everything about the man. I said, listen, I got a concert tomorrow. Can you work something out with these people? And then, I said, do you know other musicians? You know what I mean? So basically, we went from the studios to his house, and all the musicians for the band were there. And they were already rehearsing my music or listening to my CDs or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I just showed up at my own rehearsal with the band, helped them through the songs we need, enough tunes to cover the gig, and we were all set.
Wow. So you had sort of all that, you had just come back from that then. Is that what you just come back from?
This is just a story I was telling you how music is spoken everywhere.
Yeah.
So that was my point. This is way beyond, this was in the 1990s that I was learning this. By 2011, when I went to Haiti, shockingly ended up in Haiti. I mean, that's like, that's rare. They would bring me to, they would do that. But anyway,
I'm thinking your travels and all the places you had been must have, and the things you had seen must have also inspired. And then what you're seeing on that day on 9/11, and you're just thinking, yes, what can I do?
I knew that it was a universal language.
Yes.
It was a gift for all mankind. Things I wrote in the poem, which I'm going to recite to you in a little bit when we do that. So what happened was, I realized all this anyway. Now this 9/11 things, and now 9/11 is confirming to me that, everything I have been told is not, you know what I mean? Maybe the things I've been thinking are more true than the things I'm being told. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking all of this stuff, but I'm not being told it. I'm being told, buy more toothpaste or whatever. I'm being told other things, but I'm thinking these thoughts. I'm saying maybe I should do something about the thoughts I'm thinking. Maybe I should honor the things I've been learning and the things I've been thinking and the things I've been seeing firsthand about how music can do so much good to offset all of this bad.
Right.
You see what I mean? And now I got another problem because I got this poem I wrote. And what am I going to do with these words? Well, the only thing I could do was try and live up to them.
Right. Would you mind reciting it for us now?
Well, yeah. And it's going to be musical. Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be great. We would love it.
This is a little musical thing. It starts out with the Jazz for Peace poem that I'm going to kind of do over accompanied with music. That's a segue into something called Free JA. And that's kind of I'm going to make it up as I go along. I make it up on every podcast so that different podcasts can hopefully find out about each other, people that visit other podcasts, through what I did on this one or that one, if I can get them interested that way.
Yeah, okay.
Free JA, that's kind of another thing about whistleblowers. That's kind of my way of saying, hey, wait a minute. You cannot silence whistleblowers, especially ones who are reporting about civilians being bombed during wartime. Because if you do that, then we're going to have civilians bombed and no one reporting about it. That's going to be a carte blanche for everyone to be at risk. So
Right.
anyway, I'm going to segue into that, and then I'm going to go into an actual jazz standard from the old 1940s that was sung by Frank Sinatra. It's called.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So it'll be a little. I'll cross a few different styles.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
I hear jazz for peace, coming through the trees. And in my heart it fills me like a celebration. I see the light, and I want to follow. Inspired by the past contributions of those that came before. And lay the groundwork for us to build on in this universal language that is a gift for all mankind. When we speak it, people are enlightened by the creativity and artistry that stands for peace and love and humanity. Intelligence that leads to reaching potential. We have in our soul. So we raise our total conscience and see the gift of giving is our greatest privilege. I hear jazz for peace.
Wow.
Very nice.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yes, that was
Thank you.
so beautiful. I feel so fortunate that we were just treated to that. I feel really special.
I felt like I was whisked away into a little cafe in New Orleans or something. For a
Yeah.
minute there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Very
beautiful.
Nice. Very nice.
When you are playing even in your own apartment in New York, do you still feel that passion that you did in the beginning? Like, do you still feel that every time?
What I do now is I sometimes will use the piano as a meditational tool. So I can kind of just sit at the piano and kind of meditate a little bit, like I'll be playing.
Yeah.
I'll just be doing, and I'll go into kind of a little bit of a, I don't know what you call it, a trance. I don't know, a little bit of a zone, a little bit of a meditational type of zone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of therapeutic to do. But as far as I think what you're talking about is learning, forget about it. It never ends. Because again, it goes back to that thing of the more you know, the more it opens up new doors for other possibilities.
Oh, totally. Totally. I feel I'm not musically talented at all. Jerry plays a little bit of guitar, but I feel that when I listen to jazz, like I work from home. And so I'll put the jazz, there's like a big band jazz station on or whatever. And I'll put it on and just kind of have it in the background. And I feel that way. I feel like it sort of helps me get into a zone, and I don't know. And then we will listen to it at night, and it's just a different kind of feeling, I think, than any other type of music.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would say so. And I think too, when you're actually playing it, it really ups something about producing it on your own and listening to it, then it really gets a little meditative, I think.
It does. And I'll tell you something else that's interesting for you that you should know. When you play something live, one of the reasons it's always different, if you're truly improvising, is because of things like the people that happen to be in the room. Or sharing it with. That plays into it somehow. You know what I mean? Even, the vibe of that day, or, just things of that moment. There's something, you know what I mean? So, I could play the same arrangement for somebody else, and their vibe combined with other issues surrounding that, it would come through me in a different way.
We wanted to take a pause for a second to tell you once again about how much we love Sugar Wish.
If you're a regular listener, Sugar Wish isn't new to you. You already know how much we adore the fact that we count on Sugar Wish to send gifts to people. Why? Because it's easy.
Yes.
It's a time saver.
Yes.
The recipient is going to love it because they choose what they want.
That's right.
And it's not a gift that's going to take up space because it's edible.
Yes.
What's not to love?
You forgot something.
What's that?
You save money because we have a code to share with our listeners.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Use code Betty White. That's all caps, one word, Betty White, to save $7 off your gift to someone. We also have the link in the show notes.
Yep. Whether you're gifting someone candy, snacks, tea, coffee, wine, or some dog treats to one lucky pup, that code works to save. Sugar Wish always saves the day. Is it the same with the venue? Like, I always think of how special, when we go to New Orleans, Preservation Hall, of course, and you just think, I can't imagine like being a musician and then playing there.
Well, if I was to play in Preservation Hall, there would be something,
different feeling.
The hall and the people in it and the city itself, etc.
Yeah, and I would imagine in New York, I think it would always be special. Right there in your apartment, I think it's special in New York.
It's special it's special everywhere. But what makes it, I think, unique are sometimes the actual people that I happen to be playing for at that moment.
Yeah,
is, you were part of the performance in a weird way because I just. You know what I mean? I was.
Yeah. So, Jazz for Peace, and now hearing that rendition at the beginning and then hearing the words, and I was sort of picturing you that day, thinking about it, and I was like, oh, and I was getting chills just thinking about it. Now, and I always think when people do amazing things like you've done, there's so many, but like Jazz for Peace, and Jazz for Peace now, the organization gives away grants, and is 850 still the number?
Well, what it is basically we just leave it at that. I mean, we could easily say over 900 grants.
Yeah.
What happened was when we started doing most of these things, we just didn't know. Like when I wrote a poem, I didn't know. I just thought I made it through the day. You know what I made it through the day. I wrote the poem. The poem helped me get through this day. Those words that came out of me that I wrote down. I didn't know it was going to be recited at a major jazz festival after that. Putting it to music. I didn't know it was going to take on its own journey. And when we started Jazz for Peace, the same deal. I thought, I had a youth hostel, and it was called Jazz in the Park. Well, everybody thought, wow, it's somebody called this, that means jazz. And it's on Duke Ellington Boulevard. Okay.
Oh.
But it had nothing to do, it was the guy's name was Jaz, I believe, or J. That was his name. That was his name. But I was like, okay, you don't know this, but I happen to know that if you put jazz on your little youth hostel and you put it on 106th Street, and which is Duke Ellington Boulevard, even though you probably don't now know that either, I can do something with your basement. You know what I mean?
Right.
Your basement is valuable to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because of where it is and because of your name that you put on your youth hostel. It was him on the park in his mind. Jazz. His name was Jazz. But my name was, no, it's Jazz on the park for what everyone else is going to think. So I'm doing these things out, and I thought, oh, I'm Jazz for Peace. I'll do a little 6 of them. I'll do like, we'll help 6 outstanding causes. You know what I mean? And we didn't, so I didn't know there was like 60,000 nonprofits just in New York City. I didn't know. And I didn't know they were all around the world. And I didn't know that all of the world's problems could be solved simply by addressing and cherry picking the very finest nonprofits that are already committed to solving them in each area, and then reversing from a trickle-down economy to a trickle-up economy.
Right.
Where you would take something like Jazz for Peace cryptocurrency, which we have partnered with Ethereum, and you would give it to those organizations first instead of last, so that they wouldn't have to spend 90% of their time running around looking for funds and only a few days left after they finally got the funds to survive to do what they said they're going to do all year long.
Right.
In other words, it's so crazy that these solutions are there.
Right. How do you choose now who you're going to partner with, who you're going to help?
They can choose us. And what they can choose us. Here's what happened. Again, I don't know if you ever watched the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I was little.
I like to say I was, a poor mountaineer who barely kept his family fed. And then one day, I was shooting at some food and up through the ground, just come a bubbling crude. I like to say that because I did some of the stuff I just bumbled into, like Jed Clampett, literally, which is this one, right? We get a letter from some woman, and we get a letter comes. It could have been an email, but however it is, we communicate. Someone just says, I just wanted to dear Jazz for Peace, I just wanted to tell you that I've been looking, I came across your program, and what you're doing is just, I'm so moved by your music. And she's describing everything we do. We're like, who is that woman? I sure wish she had an outstanding cause and we were helping her, because it would be so easy, because she already know, you know what I mean? She already knows who we are.
Yeah.
She knows all about us. It's going to be so easy to work with someone like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, thank you so much. Who are you? And she's like, well, I work for an organization that is helping children in rural parts of China who are unable to go to college because of their parents. I said, what are you talking about? And this was like, in the early 2000s when we started our Benefit Concert Series. She said, well, and the rural parts of China were really, they were really countryside. And she said, especially the girls, she said, well, it's not part of their culture and they just don't do it. It's just not, and they'll say they don't have the money and they don't have this and that, So what we try to do is we try to say, listen, we'll get a scholarship for your child to be able to go to school. Give it a try. Give her a try to go to school. Send your daughter to school, whatever. And I said, that's what you do. I said, wow. I said, well, you saw what we're doing. Maybe we could do something like that for you. I said, where are you located? She says, well, we're all over the country. There's 4 of them, 4 cities where this is located in the United States where they're trying to help this problem. So we ended up doing 4 concerts for this woman who wrote that letter. 1 in New York, 1 in New Jersey, 1 on the West Coast, I believe in California, and 1 somewhere else. There were 4 of them. Wow. So so now we already know, up through the ground came this bubbling crew that if they know about us, we can help them so much more if they know about us. What I mean? And we started to realize that one of the best ways to get funding probably is to know the funder. Know the funder, know who they are. For them to do, it's more important that you know who they are than it even is for them to know who you are, because that impressed us so much. What she knew about us impressed us right off the get-go. You know what I mean? Right. We're already very impressed. I mean, if someone doesn't know anything about us, that's kind of unimpressive.
Sure.
So now we're like already, I don't know who they are, but whoever they are, they sure are kind of lame to not know anything about us.
Right.
And we were like, this person, I don't know who she is, but she's impressive. She knows, all this stuff. So anyway, we have an easy ABC steps to get off the ground for an outstanding cause. And the very first one is what she did. She sent us a note just stating, what just a comment. She made a comment. Hers was, maybe a little longer than it needs to be. It doesn't have to be very long. But I mean, if an organization could just look at a little bit of what we do, we even have a page they can go to if they want to. You can find out about us, so many ways. Watching your podcast will be one way, right?
Yeah.
So watch your podcast. Someone could look at this podcast and say, man, I listened to your little song. Or the questions they asked were so good. I've learned so much about jazz for peace. I said, and I wonder if you could help. Maybe you could help us. I do this, or we help children in so-and-so, or we help, the environment, or we're trying to clean up a river somewhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's letter A. All you have to do is B and C now. You've already done letter A just by that. So that's what an organization can do. They can complete 1/3 of the 3 ABC steps. They complete one letter simply by sending an email to info@jazzforpeace.org.
Okay.
After they have reviewed some information. And like I said, the page that we have if they want to go to a page, it's simply called jazzforpeace.org/knowthefunder.pdf. You could go scroll to the bottom. I think you'll see a little button, and you could just click on it, and you could say, I want to buy Jazz for Peace a few cups of coffee, and just boink, and just send, just make a donation.
Yeah.
That would be all the help. I mean, it would mean so much to us, because that's another issue when it comes to is fundraising.
So with Jazz for Peace and all of the things that you've done, concerts and all of the wonderful people you've met and everything, all the things that you've accomplished personally and professionally, what do you consider your biggest accomplishment?
I don't know if I could judge. Maybe that's for
someone else.
Yeah, for someone else to decide. But I can say my biggest accomplishment, in a sense, was the wealth that I have received. You know what I mean? The inner wealth. Because, I've learned that even though they tell you that if you have a whole bunch of money, you're really wealthy, almost anybody is smart enough to know that that's not true. I think there was a famous quote by, I think it was Rob Lowe, an actor, who said, or it could have been Robert Downey, it could have been one of those guys. He actually said, I wish that everyone could become a movie star and make a whole bunch of money so that they could see that that's not what, that's not what they think it is. That's not going to give them the happiness that they think it is. So
I think it's Robert Downey Jr. I think I read that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go. So, I think one thing it's given me, since inner wealth is so much a part of it, and maybe external wealth is only a small piece of the puzzle, I'm finding that the inner wealth, where I've been able to get wealth through my contribution, has made me wealthier than I might have thought I could have been if I had, followed what I was told my dreams were supposed to be,
Exactly.
3 vacation homes, a boat, a yacht, 7 mates, whatever it is,
Well, this is the part of our episode where we do our Fast 5 questions. Number 1 is trumpet or saxophone?
Amazing. That's an amazing question. I might say sonically trumpet, but musically saxophone. From a musical content perspective. Because some saxophone players, I've been influenced more musically by certain saxophone players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, sonically, the big sound of a trumpet, it's an iconic sound.
I like that.
I do too.
Yeah, because they are two really different sounds, when you think, or they're used in different ways, let's say, typically. Yeah. Lady Day or Satchmo?
From a purist singer perspective, I'm going to say Lady Day as a singer, but I'm going to say Satchmo as a total package.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can totally see that. CD or vinyl?
Definitely vinyl.
I said, of course he'll say vinyl, but let's just put it in there to drum up some good discussion.
Yeah. I mean, I would be shocked. I mean, I would say that is one of the most lopsided situations, because it was a crazy idea.
New Orleans or New York City?
Well, I'm definitely, absolutely, for sure, from a current perspective, from all of that, for sure, New York City. New York City is just, it's a capital. It's just, it's definitely New York City. But, I've had the pleasure to perform in New Orleans and go to New Orleans. And so, I mean, there's no comparison in terms of its charm.
Yeah.
Never, because it doesn't even come close to compare it in terms of its charm and some of those sorts of things, its tradition and things like that, But New York, in other words, New Orleans ran about this far around the track. New York really took the baton and whoosh.
Yeah.
New York has had quite a run with the baton.
Walking or cycling?
I am going to say, even though, a lot of things have come out about the importance of walking, and I think it was like Friedrich Nietzsche who was extremely, and this guy's one of the smartest guys you're ever going to run into, you know?
Yeah. Run into.
Years ago, yeah. You maybe run into him after you die now, but.
Yeah. Or if you drop a couple of those acids, you'll be, you might see him.
Right, exactly. If you have, what I thought I was on the day of 9/11. Yeah, I mean, apparently he walked himself back to health from a disastrous situation. That's my understanding. Walked like 18 hours a day and walked his way right back into health. But since you're asking me personally,
I was thinking New York, and you didn't have a car.
You're asking me personally. I'm absolutely flat out going with bicycling because every day I get on a bike, and until right around September 11th this year when they closed the outdoor pools, I ride a bike. I'm probably going to do it in a little while. I ride a bike down to the Lower East Side from this Times Square area, all the way across town, all the way to the Lower East Side, below where I used to live. In fact, really not far from probably where the World Trade Center was, but still above that. But anyway, I ride a bike all the way down there where there's an Olympic-sized pool. So I'll say bicycling.
I think that leads us pretty well into our final question that we ask everyone. And I feel like you've answered it in so many ways, but you're going to have another eloquent way of saying it. But what does a life well lived mean to you?
I think it means, in a lot of areas, it means the sense or the feeling that you tried your best. That's a good one. Knowing that you tried your best, because it's easier to deal with the results if you know you gave your best, because how could you have done anything, if you did your best, what more could you have done? So, a life well lived, I think, is, not having that worry that, I mailed it in all these days or whatever. I didn't, so that's one thing. But I think another thing is to pursue that inner wealth, because it's big when it comes to your answer to the question, as opposed to someone else's. Someone else will look at you and perceive that. But if you don't feel it, it's a bittersweet. If they think you're successful, it's better that they think you're a jerk and you're not, ultimately.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I hate to say that because it's a bummer to have someone think you're a jerk or a loser because you don't have a lot of material possessions or whatever it is that they're thinking. But I'll take it any day of the week rather than me not have the achievement and they think I do.
Well, gosh, this has been absolutely lovely. We're going to put all the things that you said in the show notes. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being here. This has been so wonderful. What a treat you played for us, and it was just wonderful.
That's our first musical interlude, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've given us, I feel like I have a wealth of information in my head to sort through. Listening to all you had to say, it was great.
It's so great. So we really appreciate your time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Wow.
That was amazing.
Amazing. And we haven't had anybody quite like, I've had maybe one other musician, but nobody quite like that, because he does a lot of special things outside of just performing music too.
Yeah. And how knowledgeable about a little bit of everything, but how knowledgeable he is just about, of course, jazz. Has so many great stories from his travels with jazz, and he is a minimalist.
He is a minimalist, but that performance was not minimal in the middle of our podcast.
Nice segue. Yeah. No, it was not. It was not a minimalist performance.
He went above and beyond. No, he did a few little different things within that little piece, and it was just so cool. We haven't had anything like that yet.
No, I wish that we had, some kind of a better audio setup, because I'm sure that our recording does not do it justice, but we encourage you to go and follow anything of Rick DellaRatta. You can find all the links in the show notes, but what a guy. And like he said, if you know of an organization that just needs some more PR, needs some recognition to get some funds coming into that nonprofit, hey, click that link down in the show notes as well.
Indeed. If this episode resonated with you, or if you know of someone who would benefit from the knowledge that Rick was dropping, we would love it if you would share it.
We sure would. Sharing is caring, friends.
Indeed.
As always, you can find us at arneradventures.com, on Instagram at arneradventures, also linked in the show notes.
So until next time, enjoy the journey that you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye.